The fire that erupted in the rear compartment of the submarine was unstoppable. Captain Vanin had sealed the burning sections, but the flames still spread. While most of the crew had already made it to safety, Vanin and 4 crewmen stayed to figure out how to save K-278 Komsomolets, a one-of-a-kind submarine with nuclear capabilities. After attempting the inevitable, Vanin and the sailors desisted and rushed to the escape hatch, but they were far from salvation. A flaw in the hatch caused it to explosively decompress, knocking the men out except one. Outside the submarine, the crew faced a different challenge: the icy waters of the Norwegian Sea. Imagine the chill of the Norwegian Sea, the fiery chaos in the submarine. It's a taste of the intensity you can recreate yourself in War Thunder, the ultimate vehicle combat game that's free to play today when you click on our link in the description below. Commandeer over 2,000 precisely detailed vehicles, all from your PC, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, or previous console generation. Feel the pulse of the battlefield in explosive PvP confrontations that cross a century, from the 1920s to the present day. The harrowing Damage X-Ray unveils the epic realism of War Thunder, where you deal actual visible damage. There's nothing like the tension of War Thunder's naval battles, the strategic positioning, the booming of massive guns. You'll never take your finger off the trigger. Experience it all for yourself. Click on our link to charge into War Thunder now for free. Use the link below on your PC to get a massive bonus pack with premium vehicles, a premium account, boosters, and so much more. It's more than a game. It's your chance to put yourself in the middle of the action. Project 685. During the Cold War, Soviet engineers approached submarine design and development in a way that contrasted with their American counterparts. Soviet Navy doctrine called for submarines that could outrun and outdive their enemies in swift and devastating underwater dogfights. As a result, most Soviet submarines were faster, more agile, and tougher than the US Navy opponents. Double hull designs allowed Soviet Union submarines to withstand more damage and dive twice as deep at over 500 meters. Nevertheless, they also had weaknesses. They were noisier, which allowed US Navy submarines to easily detect them. Furthermore, Russian submarines had deficient radiation shielding, resulting in high accident rates. The Soviet Navy sought to eliminate these deficiencies in the late 1960s and issued requirements for developing a new submarine to become the testbed of fourth-generation submarines. It was dubbed Project 685 and was meant to test the latest submarine technologies that could blend stealth, maneuverability, and attack mechanics required for submarine warfare. The task fell upon the Rubin Design Bureau, which devised a design that could carry a mix of torpedoes and cruise missiles with conventional and nuclear warheads. It took Rubin almost a decade to develop the submarine. Although work in design began in approximately 1966, it was not done until 1974. The submarine's keel was laid down on April 22, 1978, and she was launched on June 3, 1983. The submarine was designated K-278 Komsomolets, or member of the Komsomol, the Young Communist League. She was the only one of her kind. K-278 Komsomolets. Development of Project 685 took so long because she was built entirely out of titanium alloy 48T, a material rarely used for submarines, generally made of steel. The Soviets had followed this trend and had learned to work with titanium. Although extremely expensive, it was twice as strong as steel and much lighter. Komsomolets' hull could withstand 1,500 psi of pressure from the ocean thanks to her double hull configuration, split into 7 compartments. These were the torpedo room, control room, electrical motors, reactor compartment, turbines, auxiliary mechanisms, and accommodations room. A unique escape pod located in the conning tower allowed the crew to safely abandon the ship in case of an emergency. Project 685 displaced over 5,700 tons surfaced and over 8,000 tons fully submerged. She was armed with 2 SSN-15 Starfish RPK-2 Vyoga, 2 SSN-16 Stallion missiles, and 6 21-inch torpedo tubes at the bow with a standard load of 22 torpedoes. The main submarine systems were 1 Snoophead surface search radar and 1 Sharkgill low-frequency active sonar. The submarine could achieve speeds of 14 knots surfaced and some 30 knots below water. Komsomolets' propulsion system comprised one 190-megawatt OK-650B3 pressurized water reactor, 2 steam turbines, and one 7-blade propeller. She had a crew of up to 68 men, integrated by 32 officers, 21 warrant officers, and 15 enlisted sailors. The men could endure 50 days at sea with the proper supplies. The submarine could operate under full power for roughly 4,500 hours. Komsomolets had a length of almost 120 meters, a draft of 9 meters, and a beam of 12 meters. All in all, a formidable vessel that would soon be put to the test. Demise. After her launch in June 1983, Komsomolets spent 4 years under trials and rigorous tests. In 1984, she dove 1,020 meters deep in the Sea of Norway, making her the first military submarine to do so. In April 1989, Komsomolets was dispatched for her first mission under Captain Evgeny Vanin. She was sent to the southwest of Bear Island, Norway, for patrol. At 11:03 a.m. on April 7th, the submarine was sailing at a depth of 386 meters when suddenly, high-pressure air hoses connected to the ballast tank burst their seal. As a result, the hoses damaged an oil container that leaked oil into a hot turbine and sparked a fire. The pressurized air expanded the blaze into the nuclear reactor's emergency shutdown. This led to an immediate loss of power in Komsomolets' hydraulics. Captain Vanin sealed the rear compartment to stop the fire, but it spread through the other compartments. With the crew's luck running out, the captain gave the order to blow off the ballast tanks to bring the submarine to the surface. The majority of the crew made it to the deck, but the captain and 4 crewmen stayed in an attempt to save the submarine. At 4:30 p.m., Komsomolets began to sink with the increasing fire. Vanin and his sailors made it to the escape hatch, but it explosively decompressed, fatally wounding 2 crewmen and injuring the other 2. Over 34 of the surviving crewmen perished in the freezing waters of Norway before a relief effort arrived to rescue them. The loss of Captain Vanin and 41 of his sailors out of a crew of 69 caused an uproar in Russia. In 1993, a charity was created to help the families of deceased crew members and other sailors lost in similar accidents. Radiation levels. Following the sinking of K-278 Komsomolets and her crew in the Barents Sea in April 1989, the wreck site remained undisturbed for some years. As the Soviet Union crumbled, few paid attention to the catastrophe and its environmental repercussions. Nevertheless, Soviet investigators returned in August 1991 to the resting place of the colossal submarine to examine the wreck. The specialists employed manned submersibles to take samples and analyze the submarine's hull. The team discovered that, as told by the survivors, an explosion had occurred in the bow, where the torpedoes with nuclear warheads were fitted. 1 year later, a second expedition was launched and included a team of scientists, one of whom was a Norwegian. The Scandinavian country had been taking samples since early 1990 and had found elevated concentrations of the radioactive substance cesium-137 near the wreck. This second expedition extensively tested organisms, bottom sediments, and water. The scientists tried to raise the submarine, but realized it was impossible due to the extensive damage to the hull. According to the U.S. Center for the Study of Intelligence, or CSI, in 1993, a team of Russians, Americans, Dutch, and Norwegians discovered a massive hole in the forward torpedo compartment. Although no hull deterioration or excess radiation was found, it was decided to seal the corroding torpedoes as soon as possible to prevent further leaks. Sealing the leaks. In mid-1994, the fourth expedition discovered plutonium leakage from one of the 2 nuclear-armed torpedoes. According to the CSI report, Tengiz Borisov, head of the Russian Special Committee for the Conduct of Underwater Work, told reporters, quote, "If there is a leak, fishing will be impossible in the Norwegian Sea for between 600 and 700 years." On June 24, 1995, the Russian oceanographic research ship Keldysh set sail from St. Petersburg to Komsomolets' rest site to seal the hull fractures in the torpedo compartment and cover the nuclear warheads. The operation was not easy, but the Russians accomplished it by July 1996. A jelly-like sealant ensured the wreck site would be safe from radiation for 25 to 30 years until about 2025. The Norwegian Radiation Agency and the Marine Environmental Agency agreed to take yearly water and ground samples from the wreck site to follow the radiation levels. In 1997, the Norwegian Defense Research Establishment published a study about the impact of the sunken submarine on the environment. It determined that, quote, neither the submarine hull nor the reactor vessel will be destroyed by corrosion for at least 1,000 years. Nevertheless, the radiation threat was far from over, and there was still more work and research to be done about the area near the wreckage. Ventilation pipe. In 2007, the Norwegians found leakage from one ventilation pipe of the wreck. According to Michael Scollin and Stuart Greer, authors of the article Komsomolets wreck site reveals high radiation levels 30 years after Soviet sub sinks, 5 samples were taken and analyzed in a joint Russian-Norwegian expedition in 2019. Each of them had different levels of radioactive contamination. 4 showed between 30,000 and 100,000 levels of contamination higher than those found in uncontaminated water. The 5th sample was over 800,000 higher than normal. Despite the sealing of the torpedo compartment, Komsomolets had been leaking radiation the whole time. Despite this, Hilda Elise Heldal, a researcher from the Institute of Marine Research, noted that there was no cause for alarm. She explained that any pollution is quickly diluted, and radiation has never extended beyond a meter away from the ventilation pipe. Heldal concluded that even in the worst-case scenario, leaked radiation from the submarine would not impact the fish in the Barents Sea, due to the wreck being located at such a great depth. She said, quote, I can tell you from the monitoring we do on radioactive pollution and fish from these areas that fish and seafood from these areas are absolutely safe to eat. For now, the unique Soviet submarine will remain buried in the depths, as there are no plans to raise it to prevent lethal radiation leaks. Thanks for watching. Want to support our channel and experience War Thunder's thrilling combat? Click the link in the description. Register on PC with our link for a massive bonus pack with premium vehicles, a premium account, boosters, and so much more. Let's brave the high seas together in War Thunder.